It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast, connecting you to the best real estate information across Australia 7 days a week, because we do talk to all of the real estate experts around the country, and you can stream us at any time on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Hope you had a refreshing weekend if you were looking at real estate in the last couple of days. Hope that went well. We are back into another Monday morning, February the 10th. And I see that the Sydney and Melbourne's property markets are set for a bit of a brief rebound in 2025, particularly with the auction season, which has continued strongly. Now, Domain expects an initial surge in clearance rates before they settle back to late 2024 levels. The auction market is regaining momentum after the holiday lull, it is fair to say. However, the bounce, they say, is likely to be short-lived as broader market trends take hold. What that means is probably anybody's guess. But let's right now catch up with Corie Sciberras. He is a partner from McGrath Northwest in Sydney. And Corie, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Excited to be here. Really pumped to have a chat. So thanks for having me.
Now, you guys are operating there in northwest of Sydney, pretty busy by the sound of it. You've got 6 offices there. So whereabouts are they scattered across the place?
Yeah. So we pretty much cover the whole northwest of our market, right? So we've got an office in Parramatta, Blacktown, another one in Castle Hill, Kellyville, another one in Rouse Hill, and then out there in the Hawkesbury as well. We're really covering the entire market for us, which is really awesome.
Now, I was asking you what sort of makes you a little bit unique in your market off air, and you were telling me majority of your market are owner-occupied.
Yeah, that's correct. The vast majority of our market is owner-occupied. Being in the hills, we're very family-orientated out here, so we don't see a lot of investment. So, pretty much I'd say 8 out of every 10 people we're dealing with from a buying and selling aspect are owner-occupiers and been here for 10 plus years.
Now, I want to come back to this auction market, which has been reported by Domain, had this rebound. Sydney's auction market is definitely seeing this major shift from late 2024 with buyers re-entering the competition. Now, you guys, you had your Super Saturday, which happened on February the 1st. It did bring a bit of a surge in energy. I note that you had over 130 properties going under the hammer. So just in relation to all of that, how did that go?
Mate, it was awesome. It was energy. It was really good to see buyers coming back out and willing to compete. I think back in the last year, we were really feeling that buyer fatigue. I think everyone was across the Sydney market, but they all came out with much more energy and hunger to buy a property. We had a really good clearance rate to what we expected to get as well. And having over 130, you can imagine it was a pretty hectic day, but it was a very successful day.
Now, you mention more bidders and stronger competition. It really is signalling this renewed confidence in the market. So what are a couple of things do you think that are tracking it upwards when it comes to the auction?
I think just the lack of stock is a main part of that. We're seeing a real limited supply of houses available in our core markets, probably down 25-30% than what we were at the back end of last year. So that is forcing that competition and energy to be back there as well. How long that lasts for, it's always hard to say. It's always ups and downs. But right now, that would be the main driver behind the competition we're seeing and the energy.
I note that also the first weekend of open homes in January saw more potential buyers in one day than in all of December and half of November combined, suggesting what you're talking about, this significant market turnaround. Now those numbers that I just quoted were for your 6 offices, so that really does paint the picture somewhat.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big day on that first weekend back when we held those open homes. I think it was the 11th of Jan. Just to put that in perspective from a number point of view as well, we met just shy of 2,000 buyers in one day across the 6 offices. Yeah, which outshined all of that December market and half of the November, which really just shows that the energy coming back to this side of 2025 is really heading in the right direction from a selling aspect.
Now, we were talking just last week to another auction expert, and I should really get from you a couple of tips in terms of bidding, and we will do that with Corie in just a moment.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
Now, if you are homeless, Sydney has to be the basket case out of any city in Australia to be living. How much of a focus then is there on Sydney? Because you simply do not want to be in Sydney if you are homeless. It is a dire situation.
Sydney is really ground zero for the housing crisis. I mentioned earlier that we had a People's Commission into the housing crisis, and we had 2 days worth of hearings in Sydney, and they were really brutal. They were really heart-wrenching. People were crying. We heard from people who were homeless. We heard from people who were on the brink of homelessness. And one of the really common things that we heard from people again and again was having to move constantly. So we heard from people who were moving like 7 or 8 times in the space of 7 or 8 years because rents kept going up, but they couldn't afford to keep living where they were living. And so these are people who are really on the brink of homelessness. They're spending so much of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. They're moving, all the time just to stay in places that they can afford.
Ready to step up your property knowledge? Access powerful insights with us.
And it is a Real Estate Monday morning. We are talking to Corie Sciberras. He's a partner from McGrath Northwest there in Sydney. And yes, let's crack on with some of these tips that you can give people attending in 2025. These auctions, rattle off a couple if you can for us there, Corie, what people should be focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. So, the main tips first and leading up is just do all your due diligence, right? That's one thing. So you can bid confidently on the property. And that's the common theme and trend you will see of all the winners of auctions. They bid confidently. The one thing I say to all of my buyers when they're lining up for auction is, guys, you're the only one here that knows your true budget. No one else on the floor does. The trick to secure this auction is to bid like you have no budget to scare the competition away. Because at the end of the day, the amount of people that have come up to me after an auction and said, I stopped bidding only because I felt like he never was going to, that has won the auction for them. So that confident bidding is definitely the strongest method.
What about these weird numbers? Some auctioneers say, don't just round off the numbers, put some bizarre numbers that'll sort of throw off your competition.
Yeah, I think it throws the auctioneer off more than anything.
Yeah.
But, look, it's definitely a strategy that I've seen implemented more and more over the years. And I've held over 1,500 auctions in my career, but I'd say those weird numbers are only coming in the last couple of years. But I think the strength of an auction as a buyer is, like I said, it's bidding like you have no budget, and that's going to be your strongest asset. Obviously, your budget and you stop if you get there, but bidding like you don't have one's what's going to win the property.
What about a couple of things that, because you are so experienced, a couple of things that you see which are basic mistakes, maybe pretty obvious ones, pretty simple ones, but people make these mistakes regardless. Very frustrating, of course, from an auctioneer's point of view to actually see all of that on the day.
One of the biggest mistakes that I see people do, and it just shows the competition where you're at, is bringing out your calculator and calculating things right towards the end there, because it just shows that you're coming to your limit, and that next bid that they put in could really knock you out. But another one as well is waiting for the words on the market. I see a lot of buyers wait to hear those words, and not all auctioneers and agents will announce a home's on the market before it's sold. And I've seen people miss opportunities at buying because they've just waited to the last minute thinking they're hearing those words, and then they never come.
You know, I've spoken to a lot of auctioneers over the years and have to say that calculator, that's the first time I have heard somebody talk about that. What an obvious thing that is. As soon as you said that, I thought, wow, that is so obvious that somebody is coming to the end of their budget. That is so dumb if you do that.
And you'd be surprised at how much it happens, Greg. I see it in many auctions all the time. And if I'm working with a buyer, I'm trying to have those conversations saying, guys, let's put the calculator away. You don't want your competition to know.
Oh no, that's a good one. I'm sure that people's ears sort of pricked up, particularly if they've been doing that. Just before I let you go, auctioneers have all sorts of superstitions, or some of them do anyway. Have you got a bit of a ritual that you do before you go out and call an auction, and things that you might be a little bit superstitious on?
It's going to sound a little bit weird, but I have, one thing that I always must do before I actually go out and start those auction process. And that's that I have to speak and say hello to every single registered buyer, 100%, no matter what.
I think that's really smart, because not everybody will do that. People will just say, hey, I'm the auctioneer, I'm the person in charge, just wait for my grand appearance. But to go round the room and to talk to everybody, what you're doing that's intel, isn't it?
It is 100%. You get a feel for them, their vibe, their feeling, the confidence levels they have, all the little stuff that helps you generate bids and start bids and all that sort of stuff on the day. It makes a world of difference, and I have to do it at every single auction.
Hey, great to chat with you this morning, Corie, and good luck with your 2025 year. Sounds like you're off to a tremendous start and very busy with all of those offices in the northwest of Sydney. And thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Get insider tips from industry professionals and level up your real estate game by unlocking the secrets of successful real estate transactions.
My family and I were able to get out of our flooded home and move into another home, but it brought up a whole lot of memories that I thought were long buried. It is more than the event itself.
A 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in 2020, single story, on say a 350 square metre block for around the 300 to 350,000, and a $55,000 income would have secured that. Nowadays, you need to be earning at least 130,000 as a single, or as a couple, probably closer to 170,000, especially if you've got kids.
And then you've got to build, a digital footprint. You've got to get to know the community. You've got to learn how to transact and negotiate. So there's quite a lead time. I think it looks quite glamorous from the outside.
For us, one of the big shifts has been, the fact that rate cuts are likely to come a bit later than what we were thinking early last year, but also too that we're not likely to see many rate cuts. So I said before, just 225 basis point cuts this year.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.